take a look at this simplifying problem with a lot of exponents, a lot of negative exponents. We got a fraction being raised to a general exponent, so we have a lot going on that we have to break down. It's hard to define just an exact starting point. Like, where's a good starting point? I would just start with the inside. Like, I would just start working my way in the inside there. I'm also noticing that the whole fraction is being raised to a negative exponent. I could just I'm going to hold off on that, because what I could do is I could flip the inside of the fraction and make that exponent positive. It wouldn't be the biggest deal, but there's a lot of negatives on the inside there that I want to just make sure we address. Because what a lot of people do with that method of like, oh, I'm going to flip this around and then make this positive, then they think like, well, what about this negative exponent? Does this become positive because I'm moving it? Like, when you're doing that, when you're just flipping it to address this whole in general exponent here, you don't change any of the exponents. You just change that. But that's why I don't want to get too far into the weeds here of like, when do we make positive, and all that stuff. So first, I'm addressing this. I'm looking at right here. I see this whole entire parentheses is being raised to this negative exponent. So I'm just going to distribute that. I'm just going to say this is going to be x to the negative 3 times negative 3, y to the negative 2 times negative 2. So I'll have negative 5, x to the negative 3. So whenever I have negative 3, and then this is times negative 3. Because whenever I am doing power to a power, then I'm multiplying. So negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. Y to the negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. And that is all over 30x to the negative 3y squared, all being raised to the negative 3. Now, I can rewrite the top. Like, I just had negative 5 times all of this right here. So then now that that exponent is taken care of, I can just get rid of that parentheses pretty much. I'm just going to rewrite this as negative 5 x to the 9th, y to the 6th, over 30 x to the negative 3, y squared, all being raised to the negative 3. So now you have some options. You can continue to break down the inside and then deal with the exponent, or we could just deal with it now by flipping the fraction and making that positive. And you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just get it done now. So this is going to be 30 x to the negative 3 y squared over negative 5 x to the 9th, y to the 6th, being raised to the positive 3 now. I didn't change anything on the inside. All I did is I flipped that fraction and made it negative. And the reason being, without getting into a whole thing here, let's say I had x over y being raised to the negative 2. The reason I could just do that, the reason I could just flip the fraction and make that positive is this. If I were to take power to a power here, this would be x to the negative 2, because this is 1 times negative 2. And then this would be 1 y to the negative 2, because this is 1 times negative 2. What happens? Negative exponents go down, come up. So it would be y to the second over x to the second. So if I go back to this original step here of having x over y to the negative second, I could just rewrite that as y over x to the second. And then that becomes y to the second over x to the second. You get the same exact thing. That's why we're able to do that. Let me erase all this. Don't want to throw too much information on my screen here. All right, back to work here. What do we got? Well, I have the fraction on the inside. I have this fraction here, 30 over negative 5. That can be simplified. 30 divided by negative 5 is negative 6. 30 divided by negative 5 is negative 6. And then we have x to the negative 3 over x to the 9th. When I'm simplifying that, I want to do big exponent of 9 minus the small exponent of negative 3. So big minus small. 9 minus the negative 3 is a positive 12. Where is the bigger exponent? It is on the bottom. So I'll have x to the 12th on the bottom. And then I have y to the second over y to the 6th. Where's the big exponent? Or what is the big exponent? Big exponent is 6 minus the small exponent of 2. 6 minus 2 is 4. Where is the bigger exponent? The bigger exponent is in the denominator again on the bottom. So y to the 4th on the bottom. And that is all raised to the 3rd. Now I have negative 6 over x to the 12th, y to the 4th, all being raised to the 3rd. I have to raise everything now to the 3rd, so this is going to be negative 6 to the 3rd, which I'll just do. And since it's a negative We really don't have to think too hard about the sign if it's going to be positive or negative, because we're going to get negative either way. But if it was positive, or if it was like raised to the second power, if it was an even power, 2, 4, anything even, then we'd have to make that sign positive. But since it's negative and it's odd, I'm not going to worry about it. Then on the bottom, this is going to be x to the 12th to the 3rd. So that's going to be x to the 12th times 3, which will give us x to the 36th. And y to the 3 times 4, which is 12. So there is our answer. Now, there are a lot of routes that you could have traveled down to get to this answer. This video just illustrates one route. So going back to the beginning, you could have flipped from the beginning, made this positive 3, and then did everything I just said. Or you could have done it a little bit differently. Like the order, there's a lot of different ways you could have gone about this. But I think in general, we'll probably convert. Like here, you also could have done, you could have simplified this differently. You could have done negative 3 minus 9, which is negative 12. So then you'd have x to the negative 12. That would have to go on the bottom. That's how we get x to the 12 on the bottom. Like there's just so many different ways that I could spend 15 minutes explaining this one problem many different ways. So try to figure out what works best for you as you go through and do these types of scenarios. But here's our answer. Negative 216 over x to the 36, y to the 12.